Cooper DeJean was insane this year, and it's crazy to think. This is a kid from an extremely small town, helping an NFL team win a Super Bowl in his first season. He grew up in Odebolt, Iowa, a tiny farming town that barely cracks 1,000 people. It's the kind of place where everybody knows everybody, and if you drive too fast, you might miss it entirely. There's not exactly a long list of famous people from there. In fact, Cooper's the only one. That's not an exaggeration. He's literally the only notable person to ever come from Odebolt on their Wikipedia page. Think about how wild that is. There have been thousands of small towns across the country that have produced a pro athlete or a celebrity at some point, but not Odebolt. Not until Cooper. Growing up in a town like that, there weren't a bunch of scouts hanging around waiting to hand out scholarships. He wasn't playing in some massive high school football stadium with thousands of fans filling the stands. There weren't national media outlets covering his every move. He wasn't surrounded by other elite athletes pushing him every day. That's the reality of small town sports. If you want to make it, you've got to do it the hard way. You've got to stand out so much that they have no choice but to pay attention. And that's exactly what Cooper did. His high school wasn't some big-time athletic powerhouse, but that didn't stop him from dominating in every sport he played. He wasn't just a football player. He wasn't just a quarterback or a defensive back. He was an athlete in every sense of the word. He lettered in basketball, baseball, track, and football. That's not just rare, it's almost unheard of at that level. Most kids these days specialize in one sport. They want to focus on football or basketball or whatever they think will give them the best chance at going pro. Not Cooper. He played everything. And he didn't just play, he excelled. Basketball, he scored 1,832 career points. That put him just behind NFL tight TJ Hawkinson on the all-time Iowa scoring list. He even outscored NBA player Harrison Barnes by 55 points. He was an elite defender too, 218 career steals, which put him ahead of McDonald's All-American Marcus Page. That's not just being good in a small town, that's being good anywhere. Track and field, he was even more dominant. His speed was ridiculous. He ran the fastest 100 meters of any athlete in the entire states during his senior year. That wasn't even his best event. His long jump was ranked 6th all-time in Iowa history at 24 feet and 2 inches. He wasn't just good, he was putting up numbers that only elite athletes in the state's history could match. If he had wanted to, he could have probably been a college track star too. And football, that's where he really made his name. His senior season was a joke. 3,447 passing yards, 35 touchdowns through the air, and another 1,235 rushing yards with 24 more touchdowns on the ground. That's video game stuff. South Dakota State wanted him to play quarterback, and based on those numbers, you can see why. But he didn't take that path. He went to Iowa to play defense, and that choice wasn't about what was easy, it was about what he knew he could do. He could have gone somewhere to be the star quarterback, but he wanted to challenge himself at the highest level. He wanted to prove that he could play with the best, not just at quarterback, but anywhere on the field. The thing is, despite all of that talent, Cooper wasn't exactly drowning in scholarship offers. Even though he was a 4-star recruit, the big-time programs weren't lining up to hand him a spot. It wasn't because he lacked talent. It was because of where he was from. Small-town kids don't always get the recognition they deserve. And even though Cooper could do just about everything on a football field, schools weren't sure where he fit. He wasn't a traditional recruit. He didn't come from some powerhouse high school. He didn't fit neatly into one position. And sometimes that makes coaches hesitate. But not everybody hesitated. Craig Doty, the head coach at Emporia State, was so impressed after watching Cooper at a basketball camp that he did something he had never done before. He offered him a scholarship as a junior. That just doesn't happen. But when you see an athlete like Cooper, you don't wait around. You don't assume you'll get another chance. You take your shot while you can. And that's exactly what Doty did. By the way, if you guys enjoy these deep dives, I'll be posting almost every day during the season and off season. I genuinely appreciate if you could subscribe. Thanks. Anyways, Cooper had options, but he bet on himself. He chose Iowa. He chose to play defense. He chose to prove that he could make an impact at the highest level, even if it wasn't the easy path. And that decision was just another example of what made him special. He wasn't looking for the easy way. He wasn't looking for the guaranteed spotlight. He was looking for the challenge. Growing up in Odebolt, he wasn't surrounded by Division I talent. He had to push himself. He trained in the off-season like he had everything to prove, because in a town that small, you don't get exposure just by showing up. You have to force people to take notice. He comes from a competitive family. His parents, Jason and Katie Wilkie DeJean, raised him alongside his younger brother, Jax. If you've got siblings, you already know how that goes. Plenty of battles, plenty of backyard competitions, and a whole lot of drive to be the best. That competitive nature wasn't something he had to learn. It was just part of how he was raised. And when he stepped onto the football field, that mentality showed. In his final high school game, he put on a performance that'll be talked about in those small Iowa towns for generations. His high school was playing in the state championship, and Cooper did everything. He blocked an extra point, ran in a game-tying touchdown, and after the opposing team fumbled the kickoff, he ran in another touchdown to take the lead. The game was so big for the community that it was shown in local movie theaters and restaurants. This wasn't just a football game, it was an event. That's what happens when a town this small has a player that special. That's what happens when an entire community rallies around someone who represents them. But the thing is, DeJean was always different. Even as a kid, he just had that drive. His parents never forced him into sports, but he couldn't sit still unless there was a game on TV. Not cartoons, not kids' shows, sports. His mom says that even when he was little, the only time he'd stay put was if ESPN was on. That kind of obsession doesn't happen by accident. It's in his DNA. His parents were athletes. His dad played college basketball. His mom played college softball and basketball. His grandpa, he was a coach, so it makes sense that Cooper was wired to compete. He grew up around it, and in a town like Odebolt, where there wasn't much to do, sports were his world. If he wasn't playing, he was watching. If he wasn't watching, he was talking about it. And if there was nobody around, he'd find a way to compete with himself. His grandpa played a huge role in that. Both of Cooper's parents worked, so he spent a lot of time with him growing up. And he wasn't just a babysitter, he was a coach. He'd take Cooper outside, throw him baseballs, teach him techniques, and challenge him in everything. That's where Cooper learned that competing wasn't just about talent. It was about working, learning, pushing yourself to be better every single day. That competitive nature carried over to everything. He wasn't just playing sports, he was studying them. When he was a little kid, he would literally draw up plays at recess and make his friends run them. That's how into sports he was. This wasn't just a kid playing for fun. He was already thinking like a coach before he even got to middle school. And here's the thing, he wasn't just obsessed with one sport, he was good at everything. If there was a game, Cooper wanted to win it. Basketball, he was scoring over 20 points a game. Football, he was outplaying everybody. Track, he was faster than anyone in the state. Baseball, some people even thought that might be his best sport. It didn't matter what he was doing, he wanted to be the best. That mentality never changed. He wasn't one of those kids who coasted on talent. He worked. Even when nobody was watching, he was putting in the effort. When COVID shut everything down in high school, Cooper and his friends weren't just sitting around. They built a weight room in a basement. They were lifting, they were training, they were golfing just to add some extra competition. That's the kind of competitor he was. He had to be improving. And the thing is, for all his talent, Cooper never acted like a superstar. That's the kind of person he is. He was dominating in high school, but he was still showing up to help the younger guys. When his little brother was playing junior varsity football, Cooper would be on the sidelines, signaling plays. He didn't have to be there. He wasn't playing, but that's just who he was. He loved the game, and he loved helping people get better. And you want to talk about small town values? This guy never let any of the hype change him. He still did chores on the family farm. He still hung out with his hometown friends like a regular kid. He wasn't out there chasing attention. He was just focused on getting better. And that's why people in Iowa love him. It's not just because he's talented. It's because of who he is. I want to show you just how small the area he grew up in is, though. Cooper DeJean didn't just grow up in a small town. He grew up in a place so tiny that most people have never even heard of it. Odebolt, Iowa, isn't just small by city standards. It's small by any standard. The entire town covers just over 1 square mile. That's it. You could walk from one end of town to the other in a matter of minutes. There are neighborhoods in big cities that are bigger than Odebolt. And if you zoom out a little, the whole county, Sac County, only has around 9,000 people. Just to put that into perspective, that's less than the capacity of some high school football stadiums in Texas. This isn't some bustling area with a bunch of pro athletes coming through. In fact, before Cooper, the only pro athletes to ever come from Sac County were a baseball player named Paul Zanisser and a jockey named Earl Dew. That's it, a baseball pitcher from the early 1900s and a horse racer from nearly a century ago. That's how rare Cooper's journey is. To say the odds were stacked against him is an understatement. There have been tens of thousands of small towns across America, but most of them have produced somebody famous. Maybe a musician, maybe an actor, maybe a politician. But in Odebolt, before Cooper, the most famous person from the town was nobody. Zero. The town's Wikipedia page didn't even have one notable person listed until Cooper made it to the NFL. That's not a knock on the town. It just shows how hard it is to make it out of a place like that. This isn't an area where scouts are hanging around looking for the next big thing. It's not a place with nationally ranked high school program. It's not a place where kids grow up expecting to go pro in anything. That's just not how things work there. Odebolt is the kind of town where everybody knows everybody, not just in a small community way, but literally. If you live there, you know every single person. You can't go to the grocery store without seeing someone you grew up with. You can't go to a gas station without running into a neighbor. And if you're a kid growing up there, your teachers probably taught your parents too. It's that small. And when you live in a place like that, sports aren't just about competition. They're about community. Friday night football games aren't just for the students. The whole town comes out to watch. When Cooper was playing, the games weren't just events. They were the biggest thing happening in the area. If you lived in Odebolt, you were there. And when the team was winning state championships, that wasn't just a big deal. It was the deal. People still talk about those games like they were legendary moments. Local restaurants showed the games on their TVs. People packed into movie theaters to watch. That's how much it meant to the town. And that's why Cooper's story is so incredible. He didn't come from a place that produces athletes every year. He didn't grow up in a city where kids are groomed for college football from the time they're in middle school. He grew up in a farming town where football was something you played for fun. But Cooper didn't see it that way. He treated sports like a job before it even was one. While other kids were playing for fun, he was training like his future depended on it. He wasn't just working hard in practice. He was putting in extra work when nobody was watching. And the thing is, that kind of mentality wasn't normal in a town like Odebolt. Most kids play sports because they enjoy it. Maybe they dream about playing in college. But the NFL? That's not even a thought. That's not something people expect to happen. Just to put it in perspective, Sac County as a whole, not just Odebolt, but the entire county, has only had 11 notable people ever. Not 11 athletes, 11 people. And that includes everything from politicians to actors to magazine publishers. That's how rare it is for someone from that area to make a name for themselves. And it's not like Cooper had some built-in advantage. There weren't high-end training facilities in Odebolt. There weren't elite private coaches running speed drills with him every day. He didn't have access to the kind of development that kids in major cities have. He had to figure it out on his own. When you think about the path to the NFL, most guys come from areas where football is king. They grow up in places where scouts are constantly looking for the next big thing. They play in high school programs that are built to send kids to college. Cooper didn't have that. He had a small town weight room. He had a group of friends lifting weights in a basement. He had backyard workouts and a whole lot of determination. And yet, he made it. He did something that nobody from his area had ever done. Not just playing college football, not just making the NFL. Winning a Super Bowl in his rookie season, that's unheard of. And the people back home, they love it. Because when someone from a small town makes it big, it's not just about them. It's about everybody. The whole town feels like they're part of the journey. People who knew Cooper when he was a little kid, they're still talking about him. His teachers, his childhood friends, his coaches, they all take pride in what he's done. Because when you come from a place like Odebolt, success like this isn't normal. It's once in a lifetime. And the thing is, NFL-wise, Cooper DeJean's rookie season wasn't just good, it was historic. He came into the NFL with a chip on his shoulder, and by the end of the year, he was a Super Bowl champion. Not many rookies get to say that. Even fewer can say they helped their team win the biggest game of the year. But Cooper, he didn't just help, he changed the game. It all started when the Eagles took him with the 40th overall pick in the draft. Some thought he should have gone higher. Some thought he was a first-round talent. But Philly didn't care where the experts had him ranked. They just knew he could play. And by week 6, he was in the starting lineup. That's all you need to know about how quickly he earned the coaching staff's trust. They put him at nickelback, a position that requires versatility, quick decision-making, and the ability to cover and tackle at a high level. Most rookies take time to adjust, but Cooper fit right in. And then came the playoffs. That's where rookies either step up or fall apart. Some guys crumble under the pressure. The moment gets too big. But for Cooper, the moment wasn't big enough. He played his game. And by the time the Eagles punched their ticket to the Super Bowl, he had already made a name for himself. And then came the game. The one every player dreams about, the Super Bowl. And not only was Cooper about to play in the biggest game of his life, he was doing it on his birthday. Think about that. Most people celebrate their 22nd birthday with friends, maybe a small party. Cooper, he was celebrating by playing for a championship. And what happened? He put himself in the record books. The first half was all Eagles. Their defense was suffocating. The Chiefs couldn't get anything going. Patrick Mahomes had already been sacked twice. And just when it looked like Kansas City might finally build some momentum, boom, Cooper DeJean changed the game. It was 3rd and 16. The Chiefs needed a big play. Mahomes dropped back, scanning the field, trying to find an open. But Cooper read the play perfect. He jumped the route, snatched the ball out of the air, and took off. The moment he caught it, the entire stadium knew what was coming next. Pick 6. 38 yards later, Cooper was in the end zone, and the Eagles were up 17-0. That wasn't just a touchdown. That was history. No Eagles player had ever recorded an interception in a Super Bowl before. And Cooper, he didn't just get the pick. He scored. a rookie in the biggest game of his life against one of the best quarterbacks of all time. It was a statement. And the best part, it was his first career interception. Not his first of the game, not his first of the playoff, his first ever. And it came in the biggest moment possible. Who does that? After the game, Cooper was still trying to process it all. He called it crazy. He talked about how special it was to win with his teammates, but when they asked him what was going through his mind when he made the play, he kept it simple. Score a touchdown. That's who he is. No hesitation, no second guessing. Just a playmaker doing what playmakers do. And once he had the ball, he wasn't letting anybody stop him. He dodged tackles. He got key blocks. And just like that, he was in the end zone, making Super Bowl history. And the stats? They only make it crazier. He became just the second rookie in NFL history to return an interception for a touchdown in the Super Bowl. The first, Reggie Phillips. And that was all the way back in 1985. That's how rare this moment was. But wait, it gets even better. Only one other player had ever scored a touchdown in a championship game on their birthday before. You know who it was? Steve Van Buren. And that was 78 years ago. That's the kind of history Cooper DeJean was making. And he wasn't just in the game, he was dominating. By the end of the night, the Eagles had won 40-22. The Chiefs never recovered from that early hole, and the Eagles defense never let up. And right in the middle of it, the rookie from Odebolt, Iowa, making one of the biggest plays in Super Bowl history. Think about the journey. A kid from a 1 square mile town where nobody had ever gone pro in football. A kid who had to force people to notice him. A kid who wasn't highly recruited, who wasn't a first-round pick, who had to prove himself every step of the way. And now, he's a Super Bowl champion. Most rookies take years to make their mark. Cooper did it in 1 season. And the craziest part, he's just getting started. I mean, Cooper DeJean didn't just have a great rookie season, he had one of the most impactful first playoff runs for a cornerback in NFL history. Most rookies take time to adjust to the intensity of the postseason. The speed picks up, the stakes are higher, every mistake is magnified. But for Cooper, it was just another game, another opportunity to prove he belonged. And when you compare his first playoff stat side to some of the greatest cornerbacks to ever play the game, it becomes obvious his impact was on a different level. Let's start with Rod Woodson. He's one of the greatest defensive backs ever, a Hall of Famer, a guy who made 11 Pro Bowls and won a Super Bowl later in his career. But in his first playoff run, he wasn't the same dominant player we all remember. He played in 2 games, started both, and had 0 interceptions. None, no picks, no return yards, no touchdowns. He was a great player, but in his first shot at the playoffs, he didn't make a game-changing play. That's how hard it is to make an immediate impact in the postseason. Now let's talk about Deion Sanders, prime time, maybe the most electrifying corner to ever play, a 2-time Super Bowl champion, a Hall of Famer, a legend. But in his first playoff experience in 1991, he played 2 games, had 1 interception, and returned it for 31 yards. That's solid, but there was no signature moment, no game-changing play that turned the tide of a game. Deion was still figuring things out. And then there's Champ Bailey, another all-time great, a Hall of Famer, one of the best pure cover corners the NFL has ever seen. But in his first playoff run, 2 games, 1 interception, 5 return yards, no touchdowns. Once again, very good, but nothing like what Cooper did. So now, let's look at DeJean's first playoff run. 4 games played, 4 starts, 1 interception, 38 return yards, 1 touchdown. But that 1 interception wasn't just any interception. It wasn't in some early playoff game that people would forget about. It was in the Super Bowl against Patrick Mahomes, in the biggest game of the year. And he didn't just pick it off, he took it back to the house. That wasn't just a highlight play, that was a historic moment. Let's put this in perspective. Woodson, no picks, no impact. Sanders, 1 pick, no touchdown. Bailey, 1 pick, no touchdown. DeJean, 1 pick, 1 touchdown. In the Super Bowl, he became only the second rookie ever to record a pick 6 in a Super Bowl. The first, Reggie Phillips. And that was way back in 1985. That's how rare this moment was. And then there's the birthday factor. DeJean's Super Bowl happened on his 22nd birthday. That alone is crazy, and the only other player in NFL history to score a touchdown in a championship game on their birthday, Steve Van Buren in 1947. That's 78 years between those moments. Now think about where he was playing. The Super Bowl isn't just another game. It's the most watched event in sports. The entire world is watching. Veterans struggle under that kind of pressure. Even Mahomes had a tough time dealing with it in his first Super Bowl. But Cooper, he looked calm. He played his game. And when the moment came, he was ready. The game itself was already going Philly's way. The Eagles had built a lead. The defense was swarming. The Chiefs were struggling. But that play, that pick 6, that's what put the game away. It was 3rd and 16. Kansas City needed a big play. Mahomes dropped back, looking for an opening. But Cooper saw it coming. He broke on the ball, jumped the route, and boom, he had it. The stadium erupted, and the moment he caught it, you knew he was gone. He had the speed, he had the vision, he had the blocks. And just like that, touchdown. The Eagles went up 17-0, and the game was over. Think about what it takes to make a play like that. You're going up against Mahomes, one of the best quarterbacks ever, a guy who rarely makes mistakes, and you read the play, jump the route, take the ball, and score. That's not just skill, that's instinct. That's football IQ at the highest level. His first playoff run is already in the history books. He's done something that most Hall of Fame corners never did. He made an immediate impact in the playoffs. He changed the course of a Super Bowl. He played like a veteran. So let's go back to the comparisons. Rod Woodson, 0 interceptions in his first playoff run. Deion Sanders, no touchdowns. Champ Bailey, no touchdowns. Cooper DeJean, Super Bowl pick 6. Game-changing play. Championship secured. That's different. That's special. That's a guy who thrives in the biggest moments. And the best part, this is just the beginning. This was only his rookie season. If he's doing this now, imagine what he'll be doing in a few years. Imagine what happens when he gets even better. Because one thing's for sure, he's not satisfied. He's not coasting off this moment. He's already thinking about the next one. Cooper DeJean isn't just another talented young player. He's not just a good rookie. He's built for greatness. And after a rookie season like that, the whole league knows it. Overall though, Cooper DeJean's story isn't just about football. It's about defying expectation. It's about coming from a place where nobody makes it and proving that it can be done. It's about a kid from a town so small that you could drive past it without realizing it was there. But that kid grew up to be one of the biggest names in football. And it's not just that he made it to the NFL. Plenty of guys get drafted. But what Cooper did in 1 year is the kind of thing that takes most players an entire career to accomplish. He didn't just play in the Super Bowl. He didn't just win it. He changed it. He had one of the most impactful plays in the entire game, and he did it as a rookie on his birthday against one of the best quarterbacks of all time. That's the kind of moment that cements a legacy. But here's the thing, none of it was luck. None of it was a fluke. Cooper didn't get to this point because he was handed anything. He didn't come from a school that produces 5-star recruits every year. He didn't have the luxury of being a household name before he even stepped foot on a college campus. He had to earn everything, every scholarship, every snap, every opportunity. And that's what makes him different. A lot of players are gifted. A lot of players have talent. But how many have his mindset? How many have his work ethic? How many would put in the extra hours, the extra reps, the extra studying, knowing that nothing was ever going to be handed to them? That's what separates Cooper. He didn't just make it out of Odebolt. He put it on the map. People who had never heard of that tiny Iowa town before now know it because of him. He didn't just become another name in the NFL. He became a Super Bowl champion before he even turned 23. And the best part? This is just the beginning. Most rookies hit a wall. They struggle with the transition. They take a year or two to adjust before they start playing at a high level. But Cooper, he came in ready. He played like a veteran from day one. So if this is what he's doing in his first year, what's he going to look like in his 5th? What happens when he gets even smarter, even stronger, even better? That's the scary part. He's not done. Not even close. If anything, this just fuels him even more. That same kid who had to work twice as hard just to get noticed, he's still in there. He's still got something to prove. And after everything he's done already, the NFL should be terrified of what comes next. If you guys enjoyed this, I'll be posting almost every day during this season and off season. I'd genuinely appreciate if you could subscribe. Thanks for watching.